I believe we are on record now. At least the top left indicator suggests that that is the case. Okay, so we tried to meet in Meetpad and were unable to successfully create the recording. So in the event that people are not attending live, assuming that they can watch the recording, we wanted to make sure that we have a recording. So I'm going to quickly spin through what we covered in Meetpad, and then we'll move on to the topics with the remaining amount of time. So welcome everyone again. Epoxy is out the door. Huge thanks to everyone that participated. Very grateful. I'm proud of the release. I don't think there are any major problems. We had somewhere on the order of 100 to 120 commits, which is consistent with previous releases, and certainly room for improvement. And we need more review bandwidth, but overall, I think it was a good release from Cinder's perspective. So I'm grateful for that. We've quickly discussed CI status for OS Brick. Rajat brought up the notion that not all of the third-party CIs for drivers are reporting on OS Brick when they should be, and it's probably worth going back and updating Sean's status, the CI status, and determining exactly which CIs are participating and which CIs are participating correctly in all of the relevant projects and components, because there seems to be a significant gap. At least that's what Rajat is pointing out, and that what I noticed is consistent with that as well. Brian brought up festival reviews participation and its plummeting attendance, and so we've suggested that bringing a little bit more awareness via the mailing list and IRC announcements in our weekly meeting might help be a good reminder for that. Possibly we could add it to the some project status, but we're not sure. We'll try to do everything we can to make that more visible. I also mentioned core reviewer stats. I check Stacklytics on occasion, but I brought up to the group that if anyone is aware of reviewers that are participating and have the breadth of knowledge and the cycles to be considered for core reviewership, it would be good to raise that. I'm open to hearing suggestions for proposals. So I've created a bulleted list of action items, which is just me at this point, which is really just my own personal to-do list. Sorry about that. But yeah, I made a note to spin back through Stacklytics and see if we can potentially consider any additional core reviewers. There aren't many of us, so any addition at all is very helpful. I think that's mostly it. Do we want to do a quick round of introductions, since the recording is very probably working and many of us are here at the moment? We lost Alan, I think. But otherwise, yeah, we'll just do maybe a quick round. Hello, I'm John Bernard. I'm the PTO of Cinder. I work at Red Hat, and yeah, that's it. We'll just go down the list. I'm looking at just the people list, so whatever. It's probably the list in which you joined. So the next one on my list is Brian.
Hi, I'm Brian Rossmeda. I work at Red Hat. I'm Cinder Core, also Glance Core, but I'm not as involved in Glance these days. And I've been doing the release liaison stuff for Cinder, and would be happy to train somebody else on how to do it. So feel free to let me know. And it's excitement. It's fun. It's you'll wonder why I want to give it up when I tell you how it works. But anyway, so that's a possibility. But welcome to the meeting.
Eric.
Hi, Eric Carney. Work at Red Hat on Cinder, a bunch of different things in Cinder. Not sure what else to add other than that.
That's good, man.
Fernando.
Well,
Hey,
Oh, wait, let me add something. So Eric is always posting small patches that are quick to review. So keep an eye out for him if you want to get your review stats up. Because whenever Eric sees something that's slightly broken, he just goes ahead and fixes it. So do that. And he's not real good about pushing his patches. So that's why I'm doing it for him. Because every so often I'll discover I +2'd one of his patches like 2 years ago. It's still sitting there. So take a look.
Fernando.
yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'm Fernando. I'm software an engineer at Red Hat, and basically I'm mostly working on Cinder development. And I think that's pretty much it.
Welcome. Jay.
Hi, Jay Bryant. I'm a principal architect with Lenovo, former PTL for Cinder, still a Cinder core, though I need to do better. Sorry, guys. And so mostly I'm just lurking and trying to kind of keep up with where you guys are at. Unfortunately, my day job is not. Well, every time I'm thinking there is no interest in Cinder, somebody pops up in the company and starts asking. So I staying peripherally involved at least. Good to see you guys.
Welcome. Luigi.
Hello, I'm Luigi Toscano. I'm a software quality engineer working for Red Hat, so mostly taking a look on the CI stuff. I should dedicate a bit more time on the Cinder things, but yeah, that's what I usually do, more than the code.
Awesome. Minji, Hong. I can. Oh, there you are.
Oh, hello. My name is Mingi, and I'm from South Korea. I'm currently work at Orchestra, which is like a cloud like company. Currently I'm working at the SDF, which is like a software defined the like storage, which is like a chef. Mostly I work at the optimize the chef and relate to how to integrate with Cinder. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Welcome. Right.
Hi, I'm Rajat Asmana. I work at Red Hat. I'm based out of India, so you can find me in the APAC time zone. I'm a co-reviewer at Cinder. I mostly work on Cinder stuff. And I'm someone that Brian has trained for release liaison, and I was able to do my job successfully for few cycles, so I can vouch for that. Yeah.
Nice. Welcome. Yossi.
Hi, I'm Yossi Ben-Shimon from Israel. Quality engineer working at Red Hat, Cinder team. Yeah, that's it, I guess.
Excellent. Welcome, everyone. All right. That is a summary of what we missed and what we lost in MeetPad, as well as introductions. We can jump into topics. I have not heard from Stephen or Tobias yet. They have, as usual, a good number of topics. I will try to catch up with them and get them to cover their topics, hopefully in the coming days. We have today, tomorrow, and the next day. I only allocated a couple of hours for these. But I think we should have enough time to cover what we need between the 3 days. If we pass over Stephen and Tobias temporarily, we come to the first topic that is not one of them, is Brian revising the Microversion history document. I think
We should probably skip.
we'll just
Yeah,
skip
that's just
right
like
over
a
that one.
placeholder in case we have some time. Basically, just a quick. I was looking at that with another person at Red Hat, and he was trying to figure out what microversion he should be using for something, and just couldn't. It was really hard to trace back from the history document to what exactly it did. So he just pointed out that would be really helpful. So I was thinking we could just. So if we have time, we can do one of those group activities where we just sort of go through and do it. The other, I have notes when we were doing the policy stuff that sort of correlates which policies got introduced for which microversions. I don't know if that would be too much information or if that would be a useful thing to have in that document.
Shouldn't that map roughly to the history that we record in the repository, or are they not the same thing?
Well, I mean, so it's like this. It's you want to what was the operation we were doing? It was you've got a if you use the Nova create image action to create an instant snapshot of a Cinder volume, what happens is Glance gets a 0 byte image, and then the snapshot actually gets created in Cinder. And then the connection between the two is metadata in Glance. And then I think it's like 2.48 maybe. So you can go look in the Microversion document. But if you don't know that it's Microversion 2.48 and you just go ahead and just say, create an image, create a volume from this image, that what used to happen is that it would create a 0 byte volume for you, which of course you couldn't boot and would piss you off. But if you know to add which API version you're making the request for, right, then you get the behavior that you want, where you actually use the volume. You use a snapshot to create the volume, and away you go. And you can't tell that from the API version history. So it's that kind of thing. I think so I don't know, but if people have a better way to find these things out, that also might be worth knowing. Because I think what's happened is, it's sort of like the afterthought. If you're doing a change and you need an API version change, like the last thing that gets updated is that RST file. And by that time, you're so tired of revisions and all that stuff that you just put, does a foobar, and then nobody knows what that means.
Well, and part of the reason that that's complicated, I think, is that as far as I see, a lot of tooling in general still just defaults to 3.0, which is really not what anybody should be doing at this point, but we haven't really made a push to help shift that. Any tooling that's been written in years should be using 3.50 or higher, but I think a lot of it still just points to 3.0 until otherwise specified.
We made a change for the Cinder client CLI, where it will find out from the server what the highest microversion it supports is, and then we'll use that for all the calls. And that was, I remember when we did that, that was very controversial, because people were saying, no, you should have the lowest baseline and then you opt in for the behavior. And I think that's what the OpenStack client's theory is. So I just don't know. I think the problem is, because a support person was asking me about this, because I recommended just set the environment variable, and then you don't have to worry. But of course, you sort of do have to worry, because the responses can be slightly different, because if we're using the highest microversion, there may be a couple extra fields that are slipped into some of the responses. And if your scripts are really fragile, that's going to break them. So you might have a script that's working, you know, in your old deployment and suddenly stops. So I just don't know. But to get back to the point here, it would be useful to have a really easy to know document so you could see, okay, and maybe we have one. I guess that's sort of the other thing I'm asking, because it's basically, I make this request, something weird happens, and maybe it occurs to me, oh, maybe I should use a microversion. And then the question would be, how do I figure out which one? And I guess what I would do is go to the API reference and just look at the call. And then usually all the microversions, right, there'll be some extra fields or something. It will say, you know, this microversion does this. So maybe we've got it. It's just,
well, most of the changes described in that microversion history aren't like huge functional changes. I mean, most of them are, now there's a field here that says this that wasn't there before.
mm-hmm.
Or now we accept a parameter that we didn't accept before. So I think I would say that at least half of them are pretty simple already, but I don't know. I guess I'm not sure what we would want to do documentation wise in there. It's not clear to me what would be helpful.
So we have this REST API document, and we also have like a doc string in our code. I'm referring to this one, which provides a one-line summary of whatever we implemented. So do we want this kind of like a one-line summary of the whole thing in our main doc? I don't think this is user visible.
Well, I think for most of the entries, this is not too different from what shows up in the version history document. It's a little bit shorter.
I mean, I was checking for like one of the features that I did. So in 3.62, it says default volume type overrides, which is the feature name. But in this REST API document, it says that support for set, get, and unset a default volume type for a specific project, like the whole description of what the feature is actually doing instead of the feature name. But it might be that for other things, it might be similar.
How does that description compare to Brian's? Brian, I'm wondering how Raja's description compares to your 0 byte volume from image description. Like, is it a simple matter of just being a little more verbose in our descriptions, or?
Now that I'm looking at it, I'm wondering if I was just looking at a really bad example.
Well, the example that you called out is a really bad one, because the whole thing, it says like support create volume by Nova.
That's it, right? 346. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, reading that, I wouldn't know what that meant either, because it's not terribly informative. But that probably is worse than most of them.
Because yeah, if you start at the top, they start out pretty good, and it says what call, what got added. So maybe what I should take from this is, instead of having a group activity, I should just patch that single sentence so that it's easier to understand. Because the other thing is, what happens now is, since we've had that fix for one of the CVEs, when you download the 0 byte image, well, I guess this is going to depend. Usually Glance is going to say that the snapshot is a QCOW2. No, it's not. Okay. So it depends on the backend. So for the NFS backend, the snapshot's going to be a QCOW2. Glance says it's a QCOW2. What we download is a 0-byte image that has no header. And so the format detector says, hey, this is raw, there's a mismatch, and blows up. So you don't get a volume at all, which I think is better than getting a 0-byte volume that's got nothing in it and then wondering what the heck. My operation succeeded and I have no data. All right, anyway, okay. So maybe this is, and Rajat, looking at this, I think a lot of this one sentences came out of this document probably.
Yeah, I tend to generally do like the short version on the internal doc, like the doc string, and the more expanded version for like user. But yeah, as Eric was pointing, I was looking at some examples which were same on both the places.
All right, so it looks like, okay. All right, good. Well, thanks. That's helpful. So I'll just put up a patch to clarify this one thing. And I think that's good for now.
All right. By the schedule, we only have a few minutes. I'm just looking through the Etherpad here. The next one on the list is speeding up Cinder-Backup startup, line 113. This might just be a review request.
Well, it's a review request for a patch that's like 6 years old at this point. And
Is good Lord.
we should have merged this a long time ago. I think I have looked at this, I think, a number of times and thought, yeah, this looks pretty good, and then never like went and finished the whole task of reviewing it and voting and merging it.
We have a +1 from Gorka.
Yeah.
We have passing the gate.
I guess sign me up to review this because I've looked at it a few times and probably should just go review it.
Looks like a pretty relatively small patch. Vast majority of the lines are in the tests.
Yeah, I think the general idea is when Cinder-Backup is starting up, then we fetch all the volumes. We just need the ones that are not in available states.
Well, yeah, it's pulling a lot more data from the database than it needs to, and then processing it in the service code. So yeah, I think the concept is pretty straightforward. It does seem to have 5 unresolved comment things on it, so I guess I'll trawl through that and see what's going on in there.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Eric. Decouple backup status from volume status. This is another one. I think this may be a carryover from last PTG.
Yeah.
Brian, it looks like you've had some activity on this one. Do you want me to keep you?
Yeah, I guess I don't remember. I've got a -1 on it, and I don't remember what my deal was.
Should we take some time this week to just look at all the specs that are open and see kind of what's happening there?
Yeah, I think so.
There's probably a few of them sitting around.
Let's what about Friday? How does that sound, Eric? That'll give us tomorrow to cover the bulk of the topics, and then we can allocate Friday to like group review activities.
Yeah, I'll look. It looks like Tobias left some long responses to me on this. So I'll have to go back.
Okay. Um, maybe we'll grab one more and then break for the day. We'll cover replication with Liron. I know Liron will want to have some input on this, but I don't think he's present right now. So we'll look at this next one, which is about the implementation of 658283. Would significantly improve performance of Windows? Guess this has been around for a while as well. 5 years to be precise. Eric, where are you on this one? I minus one as well.
Where is this? I lost what you were talking about.
So we are, let's see, I am on line 130.
Oh yeah. This was a thing that we probably should have done a long time ago. I think, if I remember correctly from when we talked about this like 5 years ago, part of the concern was trying to figure out whether it was wise to put an option into the RBD driver that does switch between 512 and 4K sectors when it seems kind of inevitable that you would have the same thing show up for other drivers too. And then it quickly turns into, why do you want a driver specific option to do this instead of making a standard one that would apply across drivers?
That sounds like what I was advocating for at the time, but my memory is non-existent on that timeline.
Surprisingly, like in the 5 years or whatever since this was posted, I haven't really heard anybody asking for this or talking about it. I mean, it seems like it's a good idea. There's a claim in the commit message that maybe one iSCSI driver sets this up and Nova handles it.
We could change our tact and consider this for merge as an intermediate step with the more general approach as a to-do in the interest of moving it forward, or we could hold the line and say this needs to be done in a different way.
So I guess, so it has an option to the RBD driver, and when you set that, it just sets something in initialize connection. It doesn't actually do anything to the RBD image or the RBD backend at all. So I mean, you could copy and paste the same thing and just put it in the base driver somewhere and make it do it for whatever driver you wanted to, since it doesn't appear to actually be doing anything on the storage backend at all.
Looking at the
We
comments,
can make it a configurable setting, and the driver could make note of it or not.
Well, I think it's just for, you can make it a setting that's just for the deployer. I mean, you can default it to not do anything, and then for people who want to change it, just put it in there.
Yeah, but it would be up to each driver to actually implement, like note it and take note of and behave accordingly to that change should the deployer decide to change it from the default.
Well, are any drivers going to actually do anything with this? So it changes, I guess, how the geometry is reported to the instance. I'm looking because I'm kind of curious. Looking to see what it does with this.
Yeah, I'm curious too. It's not clear what the data dictionary, where like what consumes that and what actions are taken.
Well, it's consumed by the libvirt Nova driver. So basically, when they attach the volume in libvirt Nova driver, it looks for this field, and if these settings are here, I think it just sets some stuff in the libvirt XML to enable it.
You're angling towards the idea that we could just move this up a layer above the drivers.
Well, I was wondering if you could just do it by like setting a Nova option already. It looks like you can't. But yeah, since all this is a field that's used to specify to libvirt what block sizes you want to present for the disk geometry, you could just put this in the base driver stuff and it would be fine, because I think I think it would just work on any backend, right? You might have different performance characteristics, but if we just defaulted to not doing anything and then we let people set it if they want to set it, I think you achieved the goal.
Yep. Does anyone want to sign up to rework this batch? Okay, I have made a note of that.
Yeah, I might take a glance at it if I have a chance, but I'm not sure when.
Okay.
The original author had left a comment that he tried to figure out where to put the change to apply to more drivers and got lost in the code and couldn't figure it out.
Well, I just was looking at that and I kind of started going down the same line of thought. And that's maybe another discussion we should have at some point is we ended up with this kind of wacky driver API with all this base VD and various ABC classes and stuff. And the whole thing is very confusing and kind of strange looking. So I can see why what he did is probably what I just did, which was you went and looked in the base driver at where you think it would go, and then you find out it's an abstract method and not a real method, and then you go, well, what do I do with it? Because apparently we don't have a initialized connection that's actually a real method at that layer. Which does make it hard to do that. I have thought for years that we should go in here at some point and untangle this mess of driver API stuff, because it's kind of a nightmare, but I don't really know what kind of level of interest there is in doing that.
Yeah, I guess the only reason I'm bringing it up is maybe we should merge this patch for Ceph and then follow up with something else when somebody's sufficiently motivated.
Does it have, does it at least have like a, well, we need to change the config option name if we're going to do that, because we need to rename it to RBD disk geometry instead of disk geometry, so that when we want to introduce a global one, we don't have collision of names and compatibility concerns there.
That would be good. You're saying we could modify this slightly, push it in, and then have a to-do list for the if and when we clean up the way the base classes are structured.
Yeah, or at least if we don't clean it up, if we go figure out how we want to put it in there. But we shouldn't put an option in that only affects RBD that's just called disk geometry, because it sounds like it affects everybody. And that always, it's a common, pitfall with adding options that we're always having to untangle.
So I think the idea that Eric was suggesting was to have this at the global level and just include it in the connection information if there are global configs available. So I found, at least this part of the code suggests like we can do it just before passing it to connection information. Like here we are getting the enforce multipath field, which is available in the connector, and we add it to the connection information. So that's a very general thing we do for all, any backend driver that returns their connection information, we pass this. So maybe it should be doable here.
Yeah, that probably works. My default instinct was that we'd want to put it in driver.py somewhere, but this would probably be the easy way to do it.
Oh, okay.
I had also left a comment in there about the wisdom of option descriptions referring to Microsoft knowledge base articles. That seems like a mess too, that we would want to fix.
So then looks like what we would do is if we make the change Rajat's pointing at, that would grab it from any of the drivers who report it.
Well, drivers aren't going to report it though.
Oh.
Because it's just a config option thing.
Okay. Oh, I see. So you would just grab it.
Well, but that's an important point. Like in the theory of how Cinder works, the correct way to do this might be to have it be in the volume type instead of in a config option, which is quite possibly what should be done with it. Now that I think about it, I don't know.
Do we want it on a per volume basis or on a per deployment basis?
Well, I don't know. I think it maybe depends on the back end, and it maybe depends on what's going on in the instance you're attaching it to. I'm not really sure. It seems It seems like it's hard to make an argument that it would be better for it to be a config option than for it to be in a type that you could configure different ones for different backends and such. Because usually things like this, when they're added as config options, we end up wanting them to be in types later anyway. I just don't know how many backends or deployers or anything. I have no idea like how many people like find this useful. I don't know how commonly used this would be.
Yeah, I think the whole use case depends on like using Windows guests, and basically these are, as I see it, they are front-end options, and Nova just wants a way for them to be reported by Cinder to know, like there is also a check in Nova that checks if the hypervisor is KV and QEMU, then only do it. Like I think other hypervisors don't even support setting this physical and logical block addresses. So
Well, so if we don't specify it at all, is everybody just defaulting to 512 bytes, or are they defaulting to 4K? I don't even know. Probably 512. I'm not really sure. You probably have to go to 4K for really huge volumes, right? I don't know.
Thought I read somewhere, but that Linux just does the right thing for this and uses 4K. So it's really only a problem for Windows guests.
Yeah, but the default specified here is to not use 4K.
Which would mean that would be a bad default.
Right.
So I'm kind of inclined to go with Eric on the volume type. It's one of these things that seems specialized enough that if you need it, it's going to make a big difference for you. But if you're so specialized, it's going to seem like a configuration option is the way to go. But that will be great for your deployment, but not in general.
Yeah.
Maybe I am alone in this, but this doesn't feel like this is libvirt's configuration for storage. And this is OS dependent. Like the driver doesn't get. It seems strange that the driver should have a say over this. Libvirt should make the best choice for performance for the host that it possibly can. If that's 512e in the case of Windows or 4K in the case of Linux.
Well, but it's
I don't see why the RBD driver should have a say in that. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's not the host OS, right? It's the guest OS.
Or yeah, but ultimately the IO being submitted is going to be. But yeah.
maybe some backends don't work with specific block. Yeah, I'm not sure, but we can ask Nova like why they want this information from Cinder side and not just do it on their side only?
Well, if you do it on the Nova side, I think that would involve attaching it to flavors or something, maybe. I don't know. I don't think it's wrong for Cinder to be the one providing it, but how to best do it is complicated.
Who put this topic on the Etherpad?
It's unattributed. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah, I was
could
gonna
use
say, it
hours,
would be good to know who is pushing it and how much they're willing to work with us on this.
I'm going to assume that it's Christian because I know that I think he was interested in it, and it is right after the two that he did add.
Okay.
I don't know. I think the idea of just wiring it up into types sounds pretty reasonable to me.
There would be a Nova change necessary, though, to pull that out of the type metadata.
No, you just when we send the connection data, we just read it out of the type in Cinder and send it with the attachment connection info. Which is the same thing the patch proposed here is doing. It's just we could do it in a way that would be useful for all the drivers.
All right. Eric, do you want me to bug you about this sometime in the cycle? Or
Yeah,
I don't know what your workload is looking like in the
I don't know. I can write up a spec for it probably.
Thank you to ever put the yoga reference there. That's helpful.
Yeah, I just did that. There were some questions that came up about.
I don't know how you found that. That's impressive.
No, I was looking at Christian left a comment from 2022 on that patch. No, from 2020. Geez. I guess so. What I'm not clear about is, suppose you attach a volume with some geometry and then, you disconnect it and connect it on a different VM and it's got a different geometry. Is that going to matter? I'm thinking no, but
Well, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I assume not, but I'm not totally sure. There's an interesting note in that yoga discussion claiming that if we do 4K native, we really need to persist this geometry with the volume itself. It didn't really say why. It's kind of implying that if you do it that way, you need to keep doing it that way, but I'm not sure why that is the case. The solid fire driver is doing this now. Are any other drivers doing this?
I don't remember it coming up at all.
I don't see it done in any other driver. Now I wonder if this is really as easy as I thought it was.
Commit message says solid fire driver used to do it, but I don't know if that driver is around anymore.
Which driver?
Solid fire. I think it was part of NetApp.
Yeah, it's still there. I might go watch the YouTube video of the discussion from that previous session and see why some of these things are stated here.
Eric, you want to just be the point person for follow up on that, or how do we leave this in a way that it doesn't?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Knocking out one of the patches from 5 years ago would feel really nice. It's not easy to do. All right. So we're 32 minutes over. I'm looking at the rest of the topics. I think we can get through this in tomorrow's session, and we can reserve some time for any overflow reviews or going through the specs. Eric suggested that. I think it's a good call for Friday. And I know Liron wants to discuss replication, but he is not present at the moment. And we also need Stephen and Tobias. So any objections to breaking for today and picking it up tomorrow? What's the feeling?
Makes sense to me.
Sounds good. Did you see the at the very bottom of the Etherpad, somebody put a note for something they'd like to discuss on Friday.
Ah, that's helpful. Okay. Thank you, Brian. What is UTC plus 530?
That's like Rajat's time, isn't it? Or is that?
Yeah, it's IST.
Okay. Okay, we can accommodate that, no problem. All right, let me find the recording thing here.